We have added the HTML for a postcard, but we have not yet styled it, so this is what it looks like right now. In this video, we are going to be styling it using CSS to get it to look like what we see on the finished projects here. Okay, so let us begin. Inside index.html, you can see that our postcard is basically an article element with a class of postcard, and this postcard is being split into two main parts, the image wrapper and the post info. Okay, and in our public.css file, we are going to be defining the styles for the postcard under the component section since it is a component. So I'm just going to indicate here with the comment postcard, and then we will start writing the styles for the postcard. It is going to have a height of 480 pixels, a width of 352 pixels. We'll give it a border radius of 3 pixels to give it some round edges, and then overflow of hidden. And lastly, let's give it a red border so that we can see it well on the screen as we style it. So we go to our browser and refresh. Okay, and this is what the shape is going to look like. Now this avatar is really big and it's getting in our way of styling. If you look at the finished project, the final design of the avatar is going to be this small. So I'm going to select it early right now and give it those small dimensions so that it can reduce in height and width and give us some space. So I'm just going to do a rough select. We did give a class of avatar to that image, so I'm just going to select the avatar. I don't need to be too specific right now, and I will give it a height of 25 pixels, a width of 25 pixels also, and we refresh. Okay, and that's it. So now we can split our card into two parts, the image and the post info. Alright, so after the postcard we have the post image, the image wrapper, as well as the post info. So those are the two direct descendants of postcard. So postcard and then image wrapper, and then we also have postcard, post info. Okay, so the image wrapper is going to have a height of 180 pixels out of the total height of 480 pixels. So the post info will remain with a height of 300 pixels. And then for the post info, we are going to have a padding of 15 pixels, a border of 1 pixel solid black, but we are going to make this black slightly transparent. So I'm going to reduce the opacity down to, let's say, 0.125, and let us refresh. Okay, now let's add the background image. We are going to add it inside the HTML itself, and the reason is because this card is going to be displaying dynamic data coming from the database, and there is no simple way for us to pass the name of the image which comes from the database to our CSS to be displayed as a background image. So we will just create a style element here and add background image, and then point to that image in our images folder. Okay, so I'll begin by accessing the assets folder, and then images, featured images, and then happy. Okay, so when we do that, we expect our background or our featured image to appear. Okay, now that we have added a border to our card or the post info, I can now take out the red border and we will still see the shape of our card. So the featured image is fine now. We can move on to styling the post info. And the first issue I'm seeing with the post info is that there is some empty space at the bottom that makes it look like we were supposed to reduce the height of the card. But that's not the way I think we should address this. If you look at the finished project, the amount of content within each card varies. For example, here the title takes 3 lines, here it takes only 2, here only 1. But you can still see a level of uniformity in the cards. For example, all the usernames on the cards are about the same distance from the bottom of the card. Okay, so we want this level of uniformity. Any empty space should be spread between these elements instead of just hanging at the bottom like this case here. So what I want us to do is we will display this post info using flex and make sure the space between the elements is distributed evenly. So what I will do is for the post info I will use display flex, and then I'll set the flex direction to column, because by default when you use flex it's going to place all the items in the container in the row direction, but in the post info elements are being placed in the column direction, like one on top of the other. So that's why we are changing the direction to column. And of course this is the default, nothing changes. But now we want to do justify content, and we'll set it to space between, and we do that this space will be spread between all the elements, causing our username and the read more link to be pushed to the bottom. Okay, so now we can start at the top of the post info and style the elements within it one after the other. We will start with the topics and the read time pair. So we want it to look like this at the end. Alright, we did give a class of topic wrapper to this pair of elements, so let us select that. So this appears inside post info, so I'm going to copy the selector for post info and then add topic wrapper, and we're going to push the elements to be displaying at the ends of the wrapper, like at the two ends of the wrapper. So to do that we'll just simply use flex and then justify content space between. So it's as simple as that. If you refresh, it's going to push the element to the sides. So now we can start styling the topic tag itself. Okay, so the topic tag is within the topic wrapper, but I don't think I need to be that specific. So I'll just select postcard, post info, and within post info there can only be one topic tag, at least we think so, and there's no point in being too specific. Oh well, it doesn't hurt, let's just add it just for readability in the CSS. Okay, so for the topic tag we are going to text transform to uppercase. Like I said, even though we wrote it in small letters in the HTML, we will use CSS to transform it to uppercase. Then we'll give it a font size of 0.8 rem. We'll give it a padding top and bottom of 5 pixels and then 10 pixels left and right. We'll give it a border radius of 20 pixels so that it can be round. And then we'll give it a color of this color I prepared in the background, and then a background color of this other color, and lastly we'll give it a border of 1 pixel solid this color. Okay, so let us refresh. Alright, and it is still being underlined. That is because I forgot to give it the td none class, so I'm just going to add that now. We'll just add td none for text decoration none, and the underline will be removed. For the other elements within this wrapper, it has a lighter shade of gray, or rather a light shade of gray, not just black, and we did give it a class of gray1. So let us define this class. You go to our public section, to our public.css file, and because this class is going to be used repeatedly across our website, we're going to define it in the default section. So we're just going to say color slate gray. So this is what it's going to be, and we refresh. Okay, and that will be all for this section of the card. the next thing we're going to be styling is the title itself. And the first change I want us to make is in the HTML, where instead of wrapping the header element around our link, I want us to wrap instead of wrapping the link around our header element, I want us to wrap our header element around the link. So what I will do is I'm going to cut this and paste it outside of the link and make sure the link itself is inside that header. Okay. And then let us write the styles for this link. I will open public.css, and again, since we are going to be having the post title defined in many places, I'm going to define the styles for that title in the default section. So we have post title. Okay, the first thing we'll give it is a font size of 1.4 em, and then a color of this color. Okay, and then when the user hovers on the link within a post title, you want to give it a color of this color, but we are going to change the shade a little bit, so let me make it a bit lighter. Okay, now let us refresh, and this is what it looks like when we hover. And I believe that's all the styling that needs to be done on the title of this card. So we can move on now to styling the preview of the article. Okay, so the preview appears just after the post info. So under the post info styles, I'm going to add a selector for the post preview. I think that's the class we gave it, so let's confirm. Yes, it's post preview. Okay, and we're going to give it a color of this color and a line height of 1.5 rem. Okay, let us refresh, and this is what we expect it to look like. Okay, so the last thing we need to style is this bottom pair, and I'm referring to the username and the read more link. Now these two, they look a lot like what we styled for the topic wrapper, and that is because they are going to be displaying at both ends of their wrapper, just like the case with the topics wrapper. So for these two, if you look at this HTML, they are being displayed within an element with a class of author info. So we are going to select this author info class in our CSS. Let me just place it after the styles for topic tag. So we'll add author info, and we'll style it the same way we styled the topic wrapper. That is, give it a display of flex and justify content space between. So since they are basically the same styles, you can actually do something like this. You can actually remove this and then just add a comma and then paste the second selector, and it will be applied to both of them. But I want to be very explicit with the styles here for readability's sake. There are only two properties, so it doesn't hurt to repeat them. So I'm going to leave it like this, and then when we refresh, okay, we see it coming along. Now let us style the author itself. We gave it a class of author, that is the combination of the image and the name. So for the name, we just want it to have a slightly gray color. So instead of adding the name class, I'm just going to give it that gray one class that we defined earlier. And then for the author, that is the combination of the two, we want to have some we want to use flex to make sure the name and the image are being displayed on the same horizontal level. So let us select that author. It is inside author info, so I'm going to select author info first, and then author. I'll display it using flex, then align item center. Okay, if you refresh, it is now being displayed on the same horizontal level. Now we want to provide some space between the image and the name, and then round the corners of the images. So we're going to select the image within, and that image is this avatar. So I'm just going to make its selector more specific, and then I'll do a border radius of 50% to make it perfectly round, and then we'll do a margin right of 5 pixels to give it some space between the image and the name. Okay, and this looks perfect. The last thing we need to style on this card is the read more link. It looks fairly okay, but the icon is a little bit too high up. Okay, so I'm going to add a class of read more icon on that icon, and then I'll select this class in our CSS. Let me duplicate this, move it down, close the bracket, and then add. It's not inside the author, it's inside author info. Okay, and we'll give it a vertical align of, I believe what we want is middle. Let me refresh. Okay, and that's perfect. Alright, so this is all about the design of the postcard. In the next video, we're going to be making this we're going to be making the horizontal or this flat postcard, and it's going to be simply a modification of this one. So we are not going to be styling a card afresh, so we'll simply just modify this one to turn into this one with a few lines of CSS code. Okay, so thank you for watching, and see you in the next video.